Most of you know I always try to be really positive on this channel, and we are all about the hopium, not the doomerism or anything like that. We are high on that stuff. That's what really gets people going and gets people energetic and motivated. It's all about the hopium. But unfortunately, sometimes you have to look at realities, and there are a lot of economists out there that are saying we need to be careful about what is going to happen soon. The UK economy is not in a good state. Bad things are set to happen. And unless we take action now, which again, our, shall we say, current government isn't really interested in, we could be in for really bad times ahead. And I've already said we are already in a position where 2022 is not going to be a good year for a whole lot of people. We've already got a whole lot of businesses in the UK that are no longer going to be trading with our biggest partners, again, across the channel. We've got companies in Europe that are just going to go, well, I'm not buying from the UK anymore. That's already happening. We're already seeing those numbers happening in the data, just as we covered last week with the worrying trends with the German economy. Again, not only are UK businesses not buying from Germany anymore, but German businesses are not buying from the UK anymore, and that is bad because you need your businesses again selling to other companies, but also other countries buying stuff from businesses in your country as well. So already there are worrying signs ahead, and hopefully this doesn't happen. Hopefully this really doesn't happen. I do not want this to happen, but it would be an abdication of responsibility and a rejection of reality not to talk and discuss about these potential things that could happen to the economy. So we're going to go in this today from the New European. But before we do get into that, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page. And of course, you can buy me a coffee because I'm probably going to need some after this to, help with the hopium, as they always say. It's a cup of hopium, that's it. So anyway, like I say, thank you to all those people who do support the channel that way. So let's get into this then, shall we? So this comes from the New European with the title, "The Economy is in a Death Spiral." The UK economy is already in a bad shape, but what is coming is nothing short of cataclysmic. It's long been true that the British economy is dysfunctional. It is a low investment, low competition, low innovation, and increasingly low wage economy locked into too many legacy sectors that continually fail to capitalize on its strengths, notably its great science base, plentiful business startups, and a willingness by its businesses and consumers to embrace the digital revolution. Creating a fit-for-purpose economic institutions, attacking monopoly rents, and thinking strategically has been abjured for an over-reliance on market forces. Whenever that may bring, they're supplemented by a plethora of subscale funds and short-lived initiatives. This hasn't stemmed the weaknesses. Already failing, the pandemic and Brexit have combined to try and accelerate this dysfunctionality into a toxic mediocrity. Our economic prospects are grim. If not handled carefully, the economy could too easily tumble into a full-scale crisis, if not meaningfully, if not merely falling living standards, but serious financial and business distress. The storm warnings are increasingly there for all to see. The forecast from the Bank of England in this recent February inflation report, and others from the International Monetary Fund, and surveys of manufacturing and trading experience and investment plans are profoundly sobering. The dramatic 54% rise in energy bills, where the price cap is lifted in April, even though practically offset by the Chancellor's recent package, are at the heart of an inflationary surge this spring to over at least 7% that will trigger the biggest squeeze in household spending power since records began in 1990. The resulting fall away in consumer demand over the next few years will be married to a very weak investment, weak inward investment, and weak exports induced largely by Brexit. This inflation is baleful. The Bank of England projects growth of around 1% in 2023 and 2024, and the IMF expects worse and virtual economic stagnation. Manufacturing in particular is in difficulty. And although it constitutes only about 10% of GDP, manufacturing drives about 45% of British exports and some of 2/3 of all R&D spending. And via supply chains and purchasing of the service sector supports accounts for another 10% of GDP. As many of 8 million jobs do depend on this vanity. Yet manufacturing sectors have been flatlining for the most of the last 6 months. Car output in 2021 has been its lowest since 1956. And the reasons are not hard to find, even if you actually dare to voice them, as exemplified by the CBI director and General Tony Danker in a recent otherwise soaring speech calling for the economic reboot, but scarcely referencing Brexit. The Make UK PwC survey of manufacturings in 2021 reported that 2/3 said they were hampered by Brexit, with at least 56% expecting no relief going forward, worried about everything from product labelling to conforming with EU regulatory standards and checks. A 5-mile lorry queue outside Dover and a 15-mile queue outside Calais are visible demonstrations of what is hampering productions and export decisions. British export growth is underperforming all our European peers. And of course, the car industry is very hard hit. About 8 out of 10 cars made in the UK are exported to the EU. Nor is it just manufacturing. The creative industries and another major employer is also suffering. For example, musicians need to tour, and for that, they need to move their instruments and people easily from EU country to EU country, the very market on our doorstep. As matters stand, the incapacity to freely travel beset by the very restrictive post-Brexit carbonage rule, the government movement within third country now puts the industry on a cliff edge. In financial services, banks, asset managers, and law firms are quickly making sure that they can continue their operations in the EU by boosting their EU operations. All this deters inward direct investment from overseas, already set back by a worldwide weakening. But the fall away into the UK is very significantly greater. So that for the last 2 years of 2019 and 2020, for the first time, France has won more inward investment projects than Britain, according to an annual survey by EY. Meanwhile, 1 million workers have left the labour market. The Great Resignation, of which is coupled with the collapse of, again, in EU inward migration, has led to acute labour shortages. For the first time since the mid-1970s, there is a real danger of wage price spiral, confronting the Bank of England with its most dangerous economic policy change since it was made independent in 1997. Increased rates have raised too quickly and preemptively to try and contain inflation. In a crash in property values and mushrooming of loan defaults could be triggered. Move too slowly and inflation could become embedded and it becomes impossible to lower easily. Thus, the recent history over when and how quickly to rise interest rates recently increased to 0.5% with more in prospect, but to what degree and when is wholly uncertain. The bank is currently walking a tightrope. Besides these changes, the government is very stubbornly burying its head in its sand in its attempts to try and bring together the benefits of Brexit in one publication, the benefits of Brexit. It refuses in page after page to actually recognize the trading realities. The problems of confronting the car industry, the creative industry, and the financial services in accessing EU markets, for example, are just completely ignored. And with invocations to the opportunities in the US, Japan, Australia, and Singapore, while being up the subscale domestic incentives, almost all of which were possible as an EU member state. In which case, it has now abandoned its industrial strategy and is now doubling down on the failed thinking over the last 40 years. Invocations to the market forces, lowering of the regulations deemed a priority to the stifling businesses and championing a plethora of subscale funds and incentives to level up or even build an isolated new factory. These should not be a surprise. Brexit itself justified us throwing off the yoke of the EU regulations to permit a free market Britain to pursue its destiny as a freebooting, aspirational global power was a logical accumulation of 40 years of economic wrongheadedness. Paradoxically, it was the very membership of the EU that practically protected Britain from the consequences. A flood of inward investment to exploit EU markets, some reindustrialization built on exports to Europe, generous funds and loans received from regional inequality and the British leadership of the EU science and research programs. The open question is how quickly people's lives experienced a stagnant economy and tolerate the mismatch between the soaring rhetoric of global Britain and the mediocre reality will force policy change. Repairing the broken relationship with a vast European market on our doorsteps and getting strategically serious about creating a vibrant economy. Wherever else the grim prospects for the next few years will bring, that moment will comes ever nearer. So we are in a very, very interesting state when it comes to this, and these are the economic realities. The government is going to pursue its continued wrongheadedness, even though we know full well that these policies that it is currently pursuing are just not favorable to it. We know that the benefits of Brexit paper, the levelling up paper, are just not enough. They're not going to cut the mustard, as they say, and it all forecasts to some very, very worrying economic futures here in the UK, which are not at all going to end well. And of course, as the article ended, how do people match the soaring Brexit rhetoric of this is all going to be fantastic, it's all going to be wonderful, it's all going to be, chips and gravy, with the actual economic reality of their lived lives? It doesn't matter how much the Conservatives will continue to say Brexit is going great, Brexit is wonderful, Brexit is fantastic, we got Brexit done. The more people remember, because you got Brexit done, this was the state you put the country into. So with all that, as I always said, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a organization link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can, buy me a coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all